Alright, I'd like to introduce all of you to my project, Coding Bootcamp. As the name implies, Coding Bootcamp is an educational tool for new programming students to learn the fundamentals of programming and computer science. My project seeks to solve a fundamental problem with programming instruction, and that problem is that it simply does not work for large swaths of the population. Studies have shown that no matter the academic institution, the method of instruction, or the language used to teach, that between 30 and 60% of all introductory programming students will fail their first class or will fail to form any kind of fundamental understanding of programming. Studies have shown that these students fail to form any comprehensive knowledge of the very basics, such as variables, loops, conditionals, functions, and arrays. I'm aware that some of you in the audience may not be familiar with this programming terminology, but I can assure you that these are the very basics of programming. And suffice it to say, if these students do not understand these concepts, they do not know how to program. There's simply no other way to describe it. Instructors of introductory programming also may experience the double hump phenomenon, which is simply a bimodal distribution of test scores, wherein at one end of the spectrum you have the students who succeed and learn programming, and the other end of the spectrum you have the students who fail to form any cogent understanding of programming concepts. My solution to this problem, as may be obvious, is Coding Bootcamp. Coding Bootcamp seeks to facilitate new students' learning by dynamically and repeatedly and randomly creating both multiple choice programming problems and actual coding exercises. This random dynamic generation will allow students to learn and practice at their own pace. I want to emphasize the point that this project will not seek to replace the primary instruction of programming concepts, but will simply create an environment in which new students may practice their skills without the stress of evaluation. This project will use a custom-built pseudocode-like language, which will be designed to be simultaneously simple and easy to use, while also being non-punishing and that will not frustrate users with syntactical compilation errors. The project will also evaluate students' competency level and adjust problem difficulty in accordance with their abilities. I believe there is great challenge in this project. The hardest part of the project will be this core component, which is the dynamic problem generation. The dynamic problem generation must be truly randomized so that these students are tested with truly random problems instead of simple rearrangements of instructions, so that their abilities are truly tested and they can actually practice the learned material. I must also create a custom-built pseudocode-like language with corresponding grammar, lexer, parser, and interpreter. This language must be, as previously stated, simple and easy to learn, no matter what language the student is using in their primary instruction. The language must also be very accommodating and not too particular with syntax or punctuation, so that the students do not waste time trying to learn the language. Instead, use their time wisely to practice on their programming fundamentals. Another part of the dynamic problem generation will be the evaluation of students' competency, in that the project will evaluate the students' ability and adjust the difficulty of problems accordingly. As students progress and try to tackle the more complex areas such as loops and functions and conditionals, The project will create truly difficult and complex problems with nested logic and loops and conditionals such that the students' understanding of core programming concepts is truly tested. I believe there's great value in such a project. I believe the primary consumer of a finished product would be teaching institutions like universities or schools, which will use Coding Bootcamp parallel with their primary instruction, such that students may practice at their own speed without the stress of evaluations. There exists two users of the project and of the finished web application. First, the student is the primary user and is the one who will access the web application and complete exercises provided to him. The student may also join classes created by instructors who may then be able to monitor their students' progress to ensure that they are learning the material. I know what you all may be thinking, is that aren't there a million different online programming lessons, tutorials? And the answer is yes, there are. It really is. There's Code Academy, Khan Academy, and innumerable online tutorials which profess to teach students programming. However, all these tutorials are rather similar. Now they just simply say what a function is, what a variable is, what a loop is, and they give one or two exercises for the student to complete in each area. Static exercises, mind you, which is the same for all students. As these studies have shown, just simple instruction is simply not enough for a large block of the student base. That my project, in contrast to these tutorials, will dynamically and randomly create exercises for the student to complete to allow them to truly test their understanding of the core fundamentals of programming. I truly believe that with the use of Coding Bootcamp, programming students will be able to master the fundamentals of coding and will be well on their way to a fruitful and long computer science education. Thank you. That is my project. Are there any questions?